Good afternoon. Welcome to Operation Parents webinar, Shedding Light on Youth Alcohol Usage and Binge Drinking. We've got folks with us from all over the United States today, and we're so excited to learn together. Operation Parent is a parent-driven organization providing comprehensive prevention education and support resources for parents, caregivers, and organizations responsible for raising and guiding teens and preteens. Before we go into today's content, I would like to go over a few of the features on GoToWebinar. First, on your webinar control panel, on the right-hand side of your screen, you will see an orange arrow. This arrow allows you to open and minimize the control panel. If you wish to view your screen without the control panel, just click on that orange arrow to minimize it. For now, though, please click on the orange arrow to open your control panel and view all the features. All attendees will be muted during today's presentation. I would, however, like to hear from you via the question section. That's about halfway down the control panel, and you will send both questions and comments here. There are 3 panels. The top panel will show you any questions you've already posted. Below that is another light blue panel where you can type your questions and send them privately to me. You can send us questions at any time during this webinar. Wink, wink, we love questions, so please send them as soon as they come to your mind, and we'll be happy to get to all of those. All of the questions are going to be answered at the end of the presentation. This means we may go over the 60-minute mark. So if you need to leave the webinar prior to the conclusion of the question and answer section, we certainly understand. We have some great handouts lined up for you today. One is on youth, parent, and drug alcohol contract. The second is in regards to talking to your teen about underage drinking. Our third is how to handle it when you catch your teen using. The fourth handout includes helpful sites and shedding light on alcohol usage. And then you're also going to receive a copy of today's PowerPoint presentation. About an hour prior to this webinar, you should have received an email containing the handouts. The handouts will now only be available while we were in session. So once this webinar has ended, you will not be able to download the handouts. So just take a minute now and double click on the handouts should you choose to want to download those. We are recording this presentation, and the recording will be sent to you tomorrow afternoon. A certificate of attendance will be automatically sent to all attendees who are with us live today. The certificate will be attached to the follow-up email that you will receive 24 hours after this live event. There will be a short survey sent to you directly after the webinar. If you could take about 2 minutes to complete it, if you have time, and we would greatly value your feedback. Now I'm very excited to turn the webinar over to Mary Beth Uberti.
All right, hi everybody, and welcome again. My name is Mary Beth Uberti, and I'm Director of Program Development here at Operation Parent. I am also the community presenter, and for the past 8 years have traveled all over the state plus out of the state to do presentations to students and parents at conferences and through our webinar features. Over those 8 years, I've reached over 20,000 people. So we've been out in the community quite a bit in those 8 years. Our Operation Parent, for those of you who don't know, have been in existence for about 11 now. One thing with the presentations that we always do with the heart of a parent in mind. I am a parent. I've got 2 kids. One is getting 4 days away from graduation from college, so that's really exciting. And then my other is a junior in high school. So the topic of alcohol usage, drug usage is something that unfortunately we all have to do and continue to do with our kids, but it's something that does occur in our house. I get the eye rolls anymore, but as a parent, that's part of our job, is to have these conversations. So as I go through this presentation today, as I mentioned, it's with the idea that we're talking to the caregivers and the parents of our youth. So for those of you that are parents, I'm so glad you could join us. The coalitions from across the United States, drug-free alcohol coalitions, thrilled that you're here today, and hopefully this information will be of use to you to spread in your own communities. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get going. Wait a minute. My clicker is, where are you? Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? We're going to go over just some of the current trends in alcohol use amongst our youth. We will discuss binge drinking, its warning signs, and the dangers involved with that. And then finish up with reinforcing the power of the parents and the caregivers. And for some kids, it's just that one adult that's in their life who will have these conversations and continue to have the conversations on youth alcohol usage. Something to keep in mind, I know we've covered a lot of the other drugs that have been used in the community. We've hit all the illicit drugs as much as we could, and we're wrapping up the alcohol and drug section of our webinars today with alcohol, because it is the most commonly abused drug by our youth. So even though it may not be the one that's in the news all the time, it is the one that our kids can get a hold of most easily. I just like this quote. It's from Partnership for Drug-Free Kids, and it's just really talking about the more exposure that our youth has to drinking and adolescence, and the parents' acceptance of it. That old adage, well, kids will be kids, or, that's just what they do. They do know that because of that attitude and the acceptance of it, our youth are at a higher risk for having problems later with alcohol and other drugs. So it's really important to stress to anybody who is a parent and caregiver that it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that your kids are just going to, you can just have to accept it. They're going to drink and that's the way it goes. That's not true. And we do know that most kids don't drink. Most kids are not doing drugs. And we need to expand that number. So that's why we are having these conversations. So let's just take a look at a few statistics when it comes to alcohol usage. The average age for first alcohol usage is 13 for a girl and 11 for a boy. The Academy for Pediatrics stresses that parents should start having conversations about alcohol at around age 9. And the reason for that is because the first usage has dropped younger and younger. So we're looking at late elementary and middle school. So we really need to start having conversations about alcohol usage. Pay attention to the way we use it and to answer questions when they do have questions. So it's really important we start that conversation early. By age 15, 33% of teens have had at least one alcoholic beverage, and 77% of youth say alcohol is easy to get. It's in our homes, it's in the refrigerators, it's in refrigerators in garages or bars that are in the house, it's at friends' houses, it's at relatives' houses. It's around, it's easy to get. 53% of current underage drinkers reported that friends and family as their source for alcohol that they consume. So something to keep in mind with this is if you have older siblings in the home or older adults living in your home, is to have that discussion that it's not going to be allowed in the house. So don't provide it. Don't give it to your younger siblings or think it's funny or it's just okay, I did it, so you might as well. Make the rule. That's not going to happen. But also understand that a lot of times it is coming from family members, that first alcohol usage and the easy accessibility of the alcohol is coming from family members. People who have their first drink at age 14 or younger are 6 times more likely to develop alcohol problems than those who don't try alcohol until the legal drinking age. And this comes back to brain development. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but it is so vitally important to keep them away from alcohol at least until legal age. Give the brain time to develop. And then youth with a family history of alcohol dependency are 4 times more likely to develop dependency themselves. So again, I know this is a hard topic for a lot of families, but to really be willing to talk about alcohol dependency issues inside your own family. If you have a parent, grandparent, somebody in your direct family line that has struggled or is struggling with alcohol usage, dependency, alcoholism, is to have those discussions with your kids. They need to know that. There is research that says there is a genetic disposition for those kids. They could be genetically disposed to that type of dependency. So if you're not having the conversation with them because for whatever reason it's painful, or you think, well, if I don't talk about it, I'm not putting it in their heads, it's not going to help them. They need to understand that they're at a higher risk, and we need to be willing to talk about those tough issues. 3.6 of adolescents aged 12 to 17 are dependent on alcohol. So it's a small percentage, but the problem is by age 12 to 17, we have that many dependent on it. And that can, again, will continue to change as hopefully parents get involved and have these discussions. This is information from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. This was conducted by the CDC, and it provides data representative of grades 9 through 12 students in both public and private schools in the United States. So high school students in the past 30 days, 30% drank some amount of alcohol. 14% binge drank, 6% drove after drinking alcohol, and then 17% rode with a driver who had been drinking alcohol. Something to keep in mind is 1 in 5 teen drivers involved in fatal crashes have alcohol in their system. So again, we really need to have these conversations. We have to talk about what are the risks with drinking alcohol beyond just the risk of getting drunk and binge drinking, which we will discuss, but getting into a car, being with friends and somebody is taking that drink and then getting in as a passenger, or having a few drinks and then getting in as the driver, that the dangers of this with our kids. So let's just talk about brain development. Something to keep in mind is that the brain starts this massive developmental phase beginning about age 12, and the brain does not fully develop until around 25 to 28 years old, 24 to 28 years old, depending on the person. The brain develops from the bottom to the top and from the back to the front. So that frontal lobe is the last portion of the brain to fully develop. Some things to consider when this is all going on, it's a use it or lose it time period. You know, if a child has been into music, but they decide to drop music lessons, well, over the years or during that developmental phase, the connections inside the brain for that type of skill will drop off. It's a use it or lose it. Some parts of the brain obviously will develop sooner and will have more impact in the way the kids act than other parts of the brain. Some parts of the brain to just consider is you got the cerebellum, and that's your higher learning. So this is why they're in school. You know, they can learn, and we see that as they get older, we start realizing, yeah, you know more math than I do, or you know this better, and they pick up things quicker. And that's the function of the brain at this time period. The temporal lobe has your hippocampus storing memories, and the amygdala, which is that emotional center. It's the center that heightens the emotions, and that develops sooner. And another part of the brain is your risk and reward center. Here's what we need. We need them to take risk, appropriate risk, so they can separate from us, because we don't want them living in our basement when they're 20, 21 years old. So they need to develop appropriate risk and take that so they gain confidence and they can move forward. That's part of growing up. And with that is the reward section. You know, the reward says, you know, if I do this, somebody's going to praise me in whatever shape or form it is, but there'll be praise, there'll be reward. And you see that when they're in the adolescent phase of life. They're looking for the praise and adulation, and usually it's amongst their own peer group. But the praise can come from parents, good job, you're paying attention to the things they're doing good, and they appreciate that praise. It stimulates that part of the brain. And if I took a risk to do this and I got the praise, I'm going to try that again. Good or bad, it depends on the risk they take. But here's the thing, the last part of the brain that fully develops is that frontal lobe, and unfortunately, that's the part of the brain that controls the emotions. It can control that risk-taking and look at it and say, oh, yeah, that's probably not a good idea. Let's take a look at the consequences. That's probably not a pretty good thing to try. So it is your problem solving. It's the executive function of the brain, and that's the last part of the brain to fully develop. So what we have to understand with any drug, whether it's alcohol, illicit drugs, whatever the drug is, the target organ is always the brain. It's going to modify the way the brain works. And when a drug is introduced into the brain over and over again during these adolescent phases of life, there's a greater risk for addiction and to fundamentally change the way the brain works. So this is where our kid is. Hopes and dreams, plans, all these things are happening inside the brain, and we need to protect it. And this is why we have these conversations. It's why we just say, hey, not a good idea. No, sorry, you can't do that. It's not part of what we do. And part of it is I want to protect this part of your brain. I want your brain to fully develop. I want you to have the chance to have the future and the goals that you want for yourself. So as you're talking about this with youth, keep that in mind. The target organ for any drug is the brain. It's always the brain. So why do teens drink alcohol? You might think back to when you were at this age. Why would you have drunk? But there's a myriad of reasons. So some of them is they see family and friends drinking. If they're all hanging around in the house and everybody's drinking, or they're with their cousins or relatives and they're all drinking, okay. So when you celebrate, you drink. And it's good or bad. It depends on if responsible drinking is occurring, then they're seeing responsible drinking. But if they're amongst family and underage kids are drinking, then they are seeing underage kids drinking, and it's accepted. So we have to take a look at that. Family issues. Maybe they're having problems inside the family. Maybe there's divorce, unemployment, drug issues, other issues going on inside the family. Abuse. If I'm a kid and I want to escape that problem, or maybe that's my only escape, then I may look to drugs and alcohol as a form of escape. I want to be part of a group. At this stage, adolescence phase, they do want to be part of a group. They crave the need to be with friends. It helps them to develop. It helps them to gauge where they are in the world. So they're looking for a group. And keep in mind, if they're looking for a group and they keep seeing on social media, whether it's Snapchat, Instagram, or whatever else they're using, WhatsApp, and they're seeing parties or seeing their friends having a grand old time, and what's involved with it is alcohol or drugs, and their group of friends, for whatever reason, they deem them boring, well, they may jump to that group. And they may think, you know what, I want to be a part of that. But to be a part of that, I need to then drink. They're escaping self-medication. There could be mental health issues going on. I need to get away. It anesthetizes parts of the brain. We know that. And so if I'm looking for an escape, sometimes alcohol is where they may find it. They're bored. Also something to keep in mind, the kids will use alcohol, a couple different most likely times, is between the hours of 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. when parents aren't home, but they are. So a lot of parents, they both work, or it's a single household, the parent works, nobody can be there during those hours, and a lot of kids use during those hours. Before school, meet up, fill up a bottle with vodka, put it in a water bottle, take it on into school, or have it before school, and they either go into school with it or they drink beforehand and go in buzzed or drunk. And also then you've got the Friday and Saturday night gatherings when alcohol is being used or drugs are being used. So keep this in mind. Rebellion, we talked about that, or risk-taking. If I'm with a group of friends and I'm a teenager and everybody's drinking, and I decide it's a risk worth taking. Because number one, I want to be part of that group. My friends are doing it. And number two, everybody else is waiting for me and cheering me on. I may take that risk. And I might deem it in my head worth the risk to be part of the group or to get the adulation, to get the reward. So keep that and part of that discussion with your kids. And then again, the team perception of alcohol. It's not a big deal, especially if they see parents' approval of it used inside the home or amongst their friends. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. Look around. My friends are using it and their parents are sitting there, so it can't possibly be a big deal. Keep this in mind with marijuana also. We have seen the rate in monitoring the future. The perception of marijuana as being harmful by youth, that perception is no, it's not. And in states where it's legalized, it's definitely not harmful. But also in states that it's not legalized, it is that whole perception that it is not harmful is there. So we have that perception with alcohol, and we definitely have that same perception amongst youth about marijuana. So let's go ahead and let's start talking about binge drinking. Technically, binge drinking is consuming enough alcohol within a 2-hour period that makes you legally intoxicated, so 0.08. So within that 2-hour period, I'm downing drinks. Something to consider and keep in mind, our youth drink to get drunk. They are not drinking for, I'm going to have one glass of wine and be social. That hasn't occurred at this stage of the game. It's I'm drinking to get drunk. 90% of the alcohol consumed by our youth under the age of 21, so this is underage drinking, in the U.S. is in the form of binge drinks. 90%. 11% of all alcohol consumed in the U.S. is drunk by people ages 12 through 20. So they have a good share of the market, 11%. 14% of high school students report binge drinking in the past 30 days. So something to keep in mind with this is overall, the rate of binge drinking has actually declined. We are seeing that decline. This is Monitoring the Future 2017 report. They are seeing decline between amongst the 12th graders, 10th, and 8th graders. So they are seeing the height of it was around 1997 for some groups, and it has continued to decline, which is wonderful. There's a little uptick with the 12th graders in the past few years. 10th grade looks pretty steady, and 8th grade, a little bit of the uptick is also there. So keep in mind, right now, we are seeing that decline, and hopefully that will continue to decline. And a lot of this is parents are talking. They're getting the education, and they're getting to understand what it means to binge drink. And it is so important that we have those conversations. Usually we hear, as a generality, binge drinking. For a girl, it's about 4 drinks in a 2-hour period, 4 alcoholic beverages. A boy, about 3 or 4. A boy is about 4 or 5. But here's the thing. This is another one from the CDC, and it really takes into account the age of the youth and in the general body mass, the weight of the youth, because that impacts how many drinks also would constitute binge drinking and would have the effects of binge drinking. Something else to keep in mind with binge drinking, if they're not eating and then they consume alcohol later, it's going to hit them a lot harder. So unfortunately, I've heard this where females will withhold the calories during the day because they know they're going to go out drinking that night. And since the drinks they're going to be consuming have higher calories, well, then I won't eat, so it offsets, which means they'll get drunk faster because they won't have anything in their stomach to absorb that alcohol. But in general, ages for boys, ages 9 through 13, it's about 3 alcoholic beverages considered binge drinking. Ages 14 to 15, about 4. 16 to 17, you've got a younger man, about 5 drinks. But again, consider weight, consider the mass of the child, the youth, and also then consider if they've eaten. For girls, pretty general, ages 9 through 17, it's about 3 alcoholic beverages. Something also to keep in mind, because of excessive drinking, it's responsible for more than 4,300 deaths amongst our youth every year. And those deaths can either come in the form of alcohol poisoning, car accidents, murder, suicide. So there's a whole lot of reasons why that would show up in that number. It's not just alcohol poisoning. It can cause them to take way more risks than they should. Just so this is something that even when I was researching this years ago, was understanding what is a constitute one alcoholic beverage. For beer, it's a 12-ounce can of beer. That's one. Malt liquor, so that's your ales, the heavier stuff that's out there. It's 8 to 9 fluid ounces is one. Table wine, 5 ounces. Now, this is the one that always gets me, because even when you're out looking for glasses and stuff and you see wine glasses anymore, they're not 8-ounce wine glasses. Usually they're a goblet, and two servings of wine is in one goblet. So without even realizing it, we as adults will pour into that goblet, and we're actually pouring in 2 alcoholic servings in a glass. So keep that in mind. And then a shot is 1.5 ounces is 1 alcoholic beverage. With our youth, we know they're not measuring. I mean, they're passing around a bottle, or they're bringing the beer or a keg in some cases, and they're just drinking. Gosh, with the distilled spirits, rum, vodka, trust me, there is no measuring that is going on. They're just pouring it in and consuming without realizing the amount that they're putting in their body in a short period of time. So something that gets scary with binge drinking is the risk of, number one, blackout, and then alcohol poisoning. So what's blackout mean? Think back to the brain, the hippocampus, where we store memory. The brain records memories. Well, if I'm drinking a lot of alcohol within that 2-hour period, and probably not eating, maybe doing other drugs, and we'll talk about concurrent use with other drugs in a moment, but I'm drinking this alcohol, at some point, the part of the brain that records memories is going to go to sleep. It's just going to happen, because the brain's taking in all this alcohol. The body's trying to take it in and also process it, but you're bringing it in a lot faster than the body can process. So the inhibition portion of the brain, the part of the brain that says, hey, I'm a little bit nervous here, I'm a little bit scared, or this is a bad idea, that gets kind of anesthetized early in the process. Liquid courage comes into effect, and now I'm feeling pretty good, and people are egging me on, and I'm going to drink more. So now I keep drinking, and that part of the brain that records memory basically goes to sleep. It can't record anymore. And now the person's in a blackout stage, which means they're up, they can be walking and talking and drinking and can get behind the wheel of a car, but the brain is not recording the memory. So that's the scary part. The brain can't do it anymore. So they may be easily distracted, a person that's in a blackout phase. They repeat themselves often during a conversation, You might be talking to them and you start noticing, okay, don't tell me that again. Please don't. Oh, yep. Okay, I kind of got to feel what's going on with you. They forget where they are and what they're doing. They are unable to hold a conversation. So the conversation's going, and again, they're repeating, or they just lose track of what's going on. They're not concerned about the thoughts or feelings of some of those around them. Again, the parts of the brain have gone to sleep. So violence can occur here. Things may be said, done, and they're not recording it, and the brain is not able to control it. So the person can become violent, become sexually violent. Vandalism occurs, when houses get all ripped up during this time when kids are having parties. You see those things. They will go into risky behavior. They may not have had thought about having sex, but now they're in that state where the brain isn't recording. There's no inhibitions. Walking and talking, not realizing, and now they're putting themselves in a risky position with sex. They're consuming and they continue to consume alcohol. Remember, they're up and moving and talking and walking. The next phase of this then is alcohol poisoning. So now we've gone and I'm continuing to drink, but now I've stopped drinking and probably have passed out. You might notice somebody is vomiting, having seizures, confusion, passing out to the point where you cannot wake them also. Their breathing may slow or have irregular breaths. Their skin may become blue and their body temperature will drop. And here's what's happening now. The part of the brain that controls your breath, your heartbeat, your swallowing, vomiting, those parts that automatically happen that you don't even think about, that part of the brain now is completely saturated in alcohol and it can't function any longer. And that's why your body's reacting the way it is. The body wants to vomit and throw off the alcohol because it's poisoning it and it knows and it's saying, okay, that's enough. I got to get rid of it. But here's the risk now. The person has passed out and nobody's paying attention to them because most likely everybody around them, they're all in their different various forms of alcohol usage. So now again, to that person, we have the risk of vomiting and inhaling it back in. Asphyxiation can occur. Body temperature may drop and hypothermia can set in. Their breathing becomes very shallow and they could just die from that. So brain damage can occur and even death. And while that person's down on the floor, and we've seen this in news, unfortunately, where in college, kids are drinking, going through the blackout phase, and then alcohol poisoning, and nobody helps them. Nobody helps them for a variety of reasons. Number one, they're just as drunk, and they just think, oh, well, they'll sleep it off. Or they're afraid to raise the flag or call for help because then everybody else is going to get in trouble, and then I'm in trouble. Kids have been known to bring other kids home and leave them in front of a house and they die overnight, or they get them in the house, put them to bed, and the next morning the parents go in and their child is dead because they asphyxiated. So that is the process between the blackout and the alcohol poisoning. So binge drinking is a high risk. We see it a lot in teen years, a lot in college. And there's a whole discussion with that can happen, but to have the conversations with your youth about this and the risk that go with this. Some of the other things that might be used with alcohol is marijuana. That's the most commonly abused drug or commonly used drug when somebody is drinking alcohol, is to smoke marijuana. Something to keep in mind with alcohol and marijuana, they're both depressants, which means that they slow down the central nervous system. And when both of these are in use together, they magnify the effects of each drug. So somebody may start exhibiting unpredictable behavior. They may have panic attacks, anxiety, terror for people. So they might have like a terror, they're hallucinating. So something else to keep in mind is somebody is using alcohol and then starts smoking, the body has to take care of the alcohol first. It has to metabolize the alcohol first, which means that as the body's trying to do that, the THC effects, that's the part of the marijuana that makes them high, doesn't change. The effects are the amount it's in the body, the way it reacts with the body, it can't process it. So that is going to enhance those effects. So something to keep in mind with this is with a lot of people with marijuana usage, they'll say, yeah, but it helps with nausea. And you hear this a lot. This is for medical marijuana. You hear a lot of people saying, oh, if you're going through chemo and you're nauseous, this is a great one. Cannabis is a great thing to help with nausea. But if you're drinking alcohol and then start smoking marijuana, there is a risk of overdosing, probably on the alcohol, as over drinking. The reason is if I'm drinking, and I'm drinking quite a bit, and I start smoking marijuana, my body may want to vomit to get rid of the alcohol out of the body. So my body's trying to vomit, but now I'm putting marijuana into my system, and the marijuana's telling the body, hey, relax, no nausea, take it easy. And now the body's kind of like, I don't know what to do, but I'm not going to vomit. And I continue to drink. So there's a higher risk of alcohol poisoning, of having the effects of alcohol being magnified. So keep in mind that, unfortunately, again, this is the most commonly used drug simultaneously with alcohol. Increased dehydration is another side effect. Alcohol is a diuretic, and combining it with marijuana can make that effect exacerbated. And we have to keep in mind also is that effect of intensifying anxiety and hallucinations. So just so you know, and you can talk to your kids about this. This is interesting, alcohol with energy drinks. The photo at the bottom there is that Four Loko. Four Loko, about in the 2000s, last 2009, 8, those drinks started coming out on the market. They were approved. By 2010, the alarms are going off and they are no longer allowed to produce these drinks. And what is Four Loko is an alcoholic beverage that contain caffeine. Matter of fact, a Four Loko basically had enough caffeine that was equivalent to drinking down 2 Red Bulls, and then also had 24 ounces of malt liquor, which is the equivalent of 4 beers of alcohol in 1 can. So 15% of youth are mixing energy drinks with alcohol. Now, you can no longer buy Four Loko with caffeine and alcohol mix. That's illegal. But kids can still mix them. They can get a Monster drink, Red Bull, any one of the Monster drinks, any one of the energy drinks, and drink alcohol at the same time. Here's the thing. The depressant effects of the alcohol, the tiredness that comes from drinking alcohol, it's going to get masked by that caffeine. So you're going to have somebody who's drinking alcohol who now is wired with caffeine, which means I must not be feeling it, so I'm going to keep drinking. And they will continue to drink because they're wired. They have all this energy, so I must not be drunk. And now here we go with the binge drinking. That's why they're more likely to binge drink when they combine energy drinks. In one of the studies that I read, it talked about how somebody could even have an energy drink earlier in the day, drink alcohol later in the day, and still have the effects of mixing alcohol and energy drinks. So it is really important to talk about this combination because obviously you can't buy them now on the market mixed, but it's so easy to do it. Buy a Red Bull and have your alcohol, and there you go. There are many stories of youth dying from this. One story is of a 20-year-old young man named Jason. He became wired and drunk after drinking at least 3 cans of energy drink, the Four Loko. By the time the amount he consumed was the equivalent to 18 light beers and 6 cups of coffee. And that was from 3 cans of that Four Loko. I just read there was an article out in 2017 that just stated that actually Four Loko is being shipped to Asia. So that is legal in Asia right now. And hopefully nobody can get a hold of it here. But please make sure you have a discussion with your kids. I've been to sporting events where I have seen youngsters, and I mean youngsters, drinking energy drinks like they're water. And that alone is not good for a kid. So we just need to make sure we're having that discussion. Powdered alcohol. This was approved in 2014 for sale, and it is powderizing the alcohol with the mixture, the alcohol drink. So like pina coladas or some type of instant cocktail. And then it's powdered and sold in a packet. And it was really developed, and they were advertising it for people who were going to camping and they didn't want to carry the alcohol and all these things to make the drinks. They could just carry this pouch, and all they have to do is add water, and they have a cocktail. They have an instant cocktail. So it was marketed under that way. Well, it didn't take long before the kids got a hold of it, and it was a really good way for them to sneak alcohol in. Football games, just bring the pouch in. Nobody sees you're carrying it. You just dump it into a thing of water, and now you have an alcoholic beverage. Same thing with taking it into somebody's home. You know, the kids are all gathering. Your parents are being aware. They're watching. They don't see any alcohol. They just see them drinking a bottle of water. Well, unfortunately, that was what was occurring. So by 2016, just so you can see the map here, 34 jurisdictions have banned the sale of this powdered alcohol. There are obviously states that this has not occurred. So the ones that are in the grayish kind of color, you still can buy it legally. So unfortunately, for some states, you know, the neighboring state, they still can get it. Kids can get a hold of it. And being in Kentucky, I've heard stories where it is showing up in schools. So obviously, somebody's buying it, bringing it in, and the kids are using it. But parents and caregivers, they need to understand that this is out there. Other trends, we have the drunk gummies. You know, heck, go on Pinterest and you can find all kind of recipes for drunk gummies, drunk shots, you know, the Jello shots. There's all kind of recipes out there. And kids know, our youth know, you just get a bag of gummy worms, whatever, the gummy bears, and you pour them into a bowl, take your favorite liquor, pour it on top, sit it overnight, and they become swollen. And then you bag them up and you share them with your friends. You open that bag as an adult, and man, it'll knock your head off just from the alcohol. So it's a quick, easy way to sneak alcohol in. Another trend is your lean. Unfortunately, this is popular in culture and music, is to drink lean. Purple drank is what it's called, or dirty Sprite. It's mixing Sprite, usually a hard candy like Jolly Ranchers, and then cough syrup. The cough syrup has to have DXM in it, which is dextromethorphan, and it has to have that to make the drink. And that is basically, it's codeine. So you mix that up, you drink it. Some of the side effects would be dizziness, blurred vision, nausea, memory problems. Most states have now made it where you have to go behind the counter at the pharmacy to actually get any of those products, like your Dimetap DM, Robitussin DM, Coricidin. A lot of these products are now behind the shelf. So you have to sign for it because of the codeine, and codeine is addictive. So kids are drinking this. A lot of schools will see wrappers of Jolly Ranchers. They'll see the empty cough medicine. If you're bringing cough medicine into your home because somebody is sick and it has that DXM compound in it, please lock it up. Pay attention to where it is. It may not be your kid that's using it, but it may be a friend who's coming into your home or a relative, and they could take it. So please pay attention. Get rid of it once the person is done with their illness, and that way it is just out of your house. So parents, again, there are parents out there who think, you know what, it's always better that my kid drinks in my own house. I can supervise it. I can take their keys. And if they want to have a party, it's fine with me if we have alcohol or marijuana or whatever. But the problem is that's illegal. It's illegal to provide alcohol or any type of drug, but a particular social host laws deal with alcohol to anyone that is underage, under the age of 21. It's illegal. Social host rules differ from county to county. Some of them are very restrictive, in which a parent doesn't even have to be in the house, or maybe they are supervising the party and somebody still got the alcohol in there. The police get called because maybe there's a disruption in the house, or somebody knows alcohol is being used by the youth. The parent can get arrested, even though they did not allow it and they didn't know it. Not all counties, but there are counties. So pay attention to your social host laws. Know what it is for your county. But if you are allowing, as a parent, alcohol drinks being used by our youth, you are breaking the law. And parents, you've got to ask. If somebody's having a party, the parents are going to be there. Oh, that's great. Do not assume that they would not allow the usage, because there's been plenty of parties where parents are having their gathering and the kids are going in the backyard at a bonfire, and here comes the alcohol, and the parents are okay with it. So please, you need to ask those questions. So parents, caregivers, community leaders, those who have access to youth and are role models, or you're that one person in their life, you are prevention. You are the reason why they can say no. You got to have the conversations early and often. And unfortunately, don't get into the long lectures, because you know what's going to happen. The eyes are going to glaze over and they're going to look at you like, please stop talking. So have short conversations. Ask them what they know. Start early, talk often. Talk, when you're driving, that's a great time. And they're sitting in the back. They don't have to look at you. They don't want to look at you at that time. But hey, what do you know about? What do you know about lean? Have you heard of lean? What do you know about that? What do you think about binge drinking? What do you know about binge drinking? And talk about it. What do you know? What do you think alcohol poisoning is? What do you think about this? So if you're having these conversations, they're thinking now. And they're also hearing, hopefully, a very clear message. It's not allowed in my home. It's not allowed. You're not 21. Set your beliefs. Make sure both parents, if there's two parents in the household or you're co-parenting, you're on the same page on this. But what are your beliefs? What are your rules? And make sure they have the opportunity, they know what they are. Use the drug alcohol contract that we provided as a handout. That's a great way to set those conversations. Get to know their friends and the parents. It's not always easy, but work on it. And who are they hanging out with? And if they have changed their friends group and you don't know who they're hanging out with anymore, that's sometimes an indicator something's happened. Maybe they really have changed groups and they've gone with a better group, and hopefully you'll meet them. But if they're saying, yeah, well, you may not meet them, that's an indicator. Why won't I meet them? Who are you hanging out with? And when you get the opportunity, say hello to the parents. If you're dropping your kid off at somebody's house, don't just drop them off and walk away and drive away. Go up to the door. Hey, I just want to make sure I've not met you. Introduce yourself. Are you going to be here? Oh, okay, good. I hate to ask, and this might sound crazy to you, but you know what? Are you going to let them have alcohol or any kind of drugs? And hopefully they'll look you right in the eye like, oh my gosh, no. Okay, good. Just want to make sure. Just know that if they ever come to my house, that's never allowed. But here's the thing. What you're telling your kids is you're serious about this. And that's what they need to know. Get to know their friends and the parents. Practice what-if situations. What if you were out with your friends and the person that's driving you, you just become aware, oh, wow, they're drinking. What are you going to do? Do you have a plan? How would you get out of that situation? Talk about ideas. You can text me the letter X. You don't have to put a long text. Just text me the letter X. That tells me that I need to call you and get you out of that situation. Oh, yeah, you got to come home now. Sorry. Where are you? Yeah, I'll come get you. But the last thing you want them to do is get in that car. The last thing you want them to do is to also drive it. So if they've decided to drink, as much as they know there's going to be consequences on the other end, hopefully they will call you and get you to come get them, and they won't get behind that wheel. But talk about what-if situations. What if you're at a party and everybody starts drinking? What are you going to do? Be awake when they come home. And sometimes I know it is hard. They get older and I want to go to bed earlier. My husband's asleep. Set an alarm for when their curfew is and be awake. Set the curfew. Let them know, here's the curfew. I will be awake when you come home. And you talk to them when they walk in, look at their eyes, smell their breath. Bill Oliver says, give them a big hug, pop them one, and have them exhale, smell their breath. Jokingly, but maybe not, drug test them. But if you have reason to, you may want to do that. Model the behaviors. Model social drinking if you're going to drink alcohol. Model not drinking and driving. Model this so they see this. And always focus on what do you want to be? What's your goals? And if you stay away from alcohol, you stay away from illicit drugs, you have a better chance of developing a healthy brain, which is going to allow you to get your goals, to work to your goals, to work to a future. Because the longer you can stave off the uses of alcohol or any types of drugs, the better chance they have of not becoming addicted, not abusing it. The better chance you have that their brain is going to fully develop into a healthy brain. So what do you want to be when you get older? What are your plans for the future? It's important for them to connect those two things because it gives them a reason to say no. So just talk about also what are the negative consequences of using alcohol, school problems. After a while, if somebody's drinking on multiple occasions, they don't care about school. Grades are going to drop. They might not be showing up at school, truancy issues, social problems, fights among friends, legal issues, DUIs, car accidents, risky sexual behavior. Again, they're drinking, they're not, inhibitions go away, liquid courage kicks in, they're not thinking, and there may be choices of having sex, and it wasn't what they wanted, but they went ahead and did it. Or sexual assault, blackouts, passing out, sexual assault, physical violence, again, alcohol-related injuries for death, car crashes, murders, alcohol poisoning, and suicide, vandalism, memory problems, abuses of other drugs. After a while, if I'm drinking, I might decide to try marijuana with it or another drug that's available with this group of friends that I'm now with. Changes in brain development. And lastly is the alcohol use disorder. If they start drinking by age 13, it's a 43% chance of becoming an alcoholic. It directly impacts their brain. Talk about the media. Listen, they're going to see a lot of advertisements for alcohol in their lifetime. The alcohol industry spends on youth advertising. For every dollar they spend, 3% more alcohol drinking by our youth. So this is a target for them. The target is our adolescents, because if I can get them young, I can get them. They're going to be brand loyal. So I'm going to advertise. I'm going to look for the targeting of our youth. Who are they targeting? The Center for Alcohol Marketing and Youth have studies that show that the alcohol industry will target Black teens. They're exposed to 32% more ads in magazines, 17% more on television, and also 24% more of distilled spirits ads on radio. Hispanic youth in their community, they were overexposed in radio advertising, and they heard 34% more beer and ale ads on radios than Hispanic adults. So they're targeting the radio stations our youth listen to. So please pay attention. Pay attention. If you see on your social media your kid is posting and talking about alcohol usage, the higher chances are they're using. So pay attention to their social media. Warning signs of alcohol usage, you're up, they come home, you got your smell on their breath, they're stumbling, concentrating, you're asking them what happened tonight, they may or may not remember, or the memory's a little foggy, coordination's off. You might start finding amongst their belongings in their backpack, in their bedroom, in their cars, alcohol. Beer cans, alcohol bottles, but things that are related to alcohol. If they're putting stickers on their stuff that's alcohol related, they're accepting that into their culture. You might see them waking up with hangovers. They're upstairs vomiting at middle of the night. Alcohol usage is a possibility. Again, the change in behavior overall. Look at your child overall, because not one sign of changing the friends group or having a car accident means it's alcohol usage. But look overall. See what overall is occurring. And then what do? You got to intervene. You got to gather the information. Keep in mind that somebody knows they're drinking. It may be the younger sibling, because a lot of times they do know, but the older sibling has sworn them to secrecy. But talk to their friends. Talk to the parents of the friends. They tend to know, especially if they change friends groups, the old friends groups, they know why they've changed. So gather information. Know what's happening. Be calm. This is never a conversation to have when your child has come home drunk. Never. Because you're upset and they're drunk. If they are stable enough, you can put them to bed, stay with them. But if they're vomiting or passing out or stumbling and you can tell they're going to pass out, you get them to a hospital, get them to an ER. But in the morning after they've come home drunk, you have the conversation, you have a plan. What is it that's going to happen? Prepare yourself for the denial, the anger. You were in my room, you were in my car, how dare you? They're not going to be happy, but you follow through with what you said. Follow through with the consequences that you set using the alcohol and drug contract. If you feel you need professional help, you realize, wait a minute, I start gathering information, I'm finding out this has been going on for a while. Or if I put all the pieces together, it's all falling together. Get your kid assessed. Get them assessed by somebody who assesses and works with youth, not adults. So you're going to have to call around for those, but they are there. And get them assessed and then get them in for professional help. But keep in mind, you don't give up on them. Don't give up on your child. And what we do know is when parents set clear boundaries, talk about alcohol usage, talk about what to do. 80% of our youth report that they don't drink because the parents are involved. The parents are the reason they're saying no. I got a crazy mom and dad that are going to be up. I can't party with you because I got to walk in that door. It might be 2 a.m, but they're awake. And you know what happens if I screw that up? I'm going to lose my car, and it's not worth it, bud. You know what? Or I'm working so hard because I want this scholarship. If I drink, it screws me up. So we know if parents set clear boundaries, have these conversations, our youth are less likely to drink. So have these conversations with your children. Have them and continue to have them. All right. I'm going to bring Michelle back in. Okay, hold on. Come on. Trying to get it to go to the next one.
There we go. Mary Beth, thank you so much. That was excellent. Thanks for all your preparation and hard work on that. We already have some awesome questions, so I'm going to start going through them. One participant says we had a similar plan in place, like the text the ex, and then one of 3 adults in the friends group would come and get the group.
That's great.
So I love that collaboration and working together, so not every parent has to go out.
Yeah.
The group. That's
great
awesome.
job. That is great.
Okay, can you cite the 80% of teens who report are less likely to drink statistic? We
All
definitely can. I mean, we can look for
Yeah,
that. And
I have to look for it. I don't have it on my paper right now, but I do know, and it may be coming out of Partnership of Drug-Free Kids, but it's in one of those sites. That's where I've seen it, and I will look it up.
okay, awesome. Thanks, Mary Beth. Our next question, do I, as a parent, share that I experimented with alcohol at a young age? Share what I know and what I learned from that experience.
Okay, it depends on the age of your kid, so be cautious with this. If they're coming back at you and saying, well, you drank or you got drunk, here's the deal. They're looking for permission in that argument. So if you did it, I should be able to do it. And if this is what's happening, don't share it. You might want to wait to share those experiences when they're 25, 26, and you can laugh about it when they're adults. But when they're kids and they're youth in your home, it's not about your experiences. It is about you saying, hey, here's the deal. These are our rules. Yeah, but did you do it? Doesn't matter what I did. If the things I know now, this is the reason why. Your world is a lot different than my world. So this is the reasons we're not going to be allowing this. So I would avoid those conversations, honestly. When they're older and you want to tell them, go for it. Or you feel like they're mature enough that they're going to understand, but I wouldn't share all that now.
Okay, great. As the prevention educator, Mary Beth, what do you feel gives students the most insight, or where do you see like the most aha moments when you're out presenting to students? What gets their attention?
It's funny. When I talk about obeying curfew, that's one that always, because for a lot of kids, there is no curfew. So they know the parents aren't going to be up. So when I tell them and I said, hey, I'm going to talk to your parents and encourage them to be awake and set the curfew, that's an aha moment right there, because it means, oh, wait a minute, there is a boundary there. Also talking about their future. Talking about what are your future plans, because if they can really understand that this has to do with brain development and I want you to have a healthy brain with all the possibilities that that will allow you, it also is an aha moment. For some kids, it is talking about alcoholism within the family, because if there is active alcoholism, I mean, abuse going on with alcohol actively, and the person is not sober, they understand the turmoil. And sometimes that's a relief to have it explained to them and to understand why it's so important for them not to drink. So every kid's different what the aha moment is. But I tell you, when I talk about curfew, it's funny to watch their faces, because for most, they don't have curfews. And that's a big aha moment.
Do you feel that peer pressure has a lot to do with binge drinking?
It depends on the situation with peer pressure. I think sometimes the peer pressure is, I just want to be part of that group, and they look like they're having a whole lot of fun. And that is pressure all by itself. But if they're in a situation to join a group, there has to be drinking. Yeah, peer pressure has a lot to do with it. Their peers are important to them. The approval of their peers is important to them. This is why it's important to recognize who are they hanging out with. And if they're hanging out with the kids that you're hearing are partying, then they're looking for the approval of that group. And that's where you've got to talk to them. You've got to pay attention to that friends group.
Okay, I'm a parent in long-term recovery myself, and I've been honest with my adopted daughter about alcohol and drugs. She knows that I'm a substance abuse counselor and prevention is what I do. Statistically, has there been any research on children that are aware of these issues from an early age that may have a predisposition to alcoholism?
There's all kind of research done on the predisposition of alcoholism within the family. Um, so the places that I always tell parents to go to are into any place that works with youth that are dealing with dependency issues, because they really have all the information, and the statistics are the conversations to have. But there is all kind of research being done. It's really hard to nail down somebody who's saying there's a definite genetic component and here's the component amount. But there is research that says, you know what, we see the numbers over and over again. And within a family tree, you do see it. You do see alcoholism usually within a family tree, and that is also another sign that there is that predisposition going on.
Where could we go to do some research on how many youth age 12 to 17 are dependent on alcohol?
Hold on. Where did I get that? I had that. Hold on. Most of the statistics for that one, it came out of, hold on. It'd be good if I had my glasses. Hold on. I'll get to it. Sad, sorry. I can't see my little writing on my printouts. Okay, the statistics for the 3.6% dependent on alcohol is coming out of one of these sites, and I believe it's out of the NIDA website, because a lot of these statistics came out of there. So if you go there, you're going to find that statistic. I'd have to pull from my research exactly where that came from. Also, in your handouts, I sent you helpful sites, and almost every one of these sites are listed. So you can go and do your own research, but a lot of these sites that I've given you are for caregivers and parents to be in there reading, but also some sites that are really good informative for youth to go in there and research on their own to understand how alcohol affects them.
As a prevention specialist, Mary Beth, what would you say is the most useful lesson for young adults and parents in your years of this work?
Is talking to our kids. Don't think that it's not going to be in front of them. It is. It's having the conversations, even though it's awkward, and we've got to have so many awkward conversations with our youth, but it's having the conversation early. They are watching you. They are watching your behavior, modeling the behavior. It's one thing to say to them, don't drink and drive, but then you go out to a restaurant and you knock back a couple glasses of wine and get behind the wheel of a car. You're saying don't drink and drive, but you're doing it. So they are watching your behavior. So they hear the conversations, they need to see it in full action. So if you're going to say, I'm going to be awake when you come home, you be awake when you come home. You got to follow through on this. But it's conversations, it's setting the boundaries, being clear with this, and then modeling the behaviors. Okay, we're going to close everything out. If you have any last minute questions, feel free to go ahead and email them to marybeth@operationparent.org. Again, the recording will come out tomorrow around this time of day in an email. For those of you that need attendance certificates, it will be attached. So you can just click on the attachment and it'll be there. For those of you that are watching this recording and listening to the recording, you can email me and I will send you an attendance certificate after you've watched the recording. Anything else, Michelle, that you can think of? Okay.
Great.
Well, thank you. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. The next webinar.
That's right.
Sorry. We're going to quickly come over here and get that if we can real quick. Everybody's thinking next webinar. Go ahead.
Awesome. So we want to invite you to our January webinar, Keeping It Positive, Body Image and Self-Esteem. That's with Dr. Amy Grinemeyer out of Compass Counseling, 2 o'clock on January 15th. We'll hope that you'll be back with us.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Right.
Thanks
Thank
for
you so
attending.
much.
Bye-bye.